I don't know what you're doing right now, if you're hungry, if you had breakfast, if you haven't eaten yet, but I have two guests on the Acupuncture show today. This is the first time I actually have two people, two wonderful acupuncturists, Tara Akuna and Sarah Ward. We have known each other for quite a long time, but we haven't seen each other in a while, and they are passionate about recipes incorporating from TCM patterns. So you look at recipes for specific TCM pattern. You are going to love this episode. I'm not going to let you wait any longer. This is going to be delicious. Let's go. Welcome, Sarah and Tara, two acupuncturists who have been friends for a long time. And I know you used to work together and be together quite often because you're both passionate about what you're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about TCM Nutrition, which is one of my favorite subjects. So I'm so glad you're both here. And Sarah and Tara used to work together, and then Tara moved to Ontario. Sarah is still in Vancouver. And so all three of us are in different locations. This is why I love the internet, because we get to reconnect after so long. So welcome to both. Thank you for being on the Acupuncture show today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You have started this a long time ago. I remember years ago when you started this website called the Yin Yang Diet, and you guys designed programs for patients based on the TCM pattern of diagnosis. I remember you had the blood deficiency diet to build and nourish blood. You had the yin deficiency diet as well, the liver qi stagnation, which I love because that's when I get a lot, liver qi stagnation. So I remember you sharing your recipes with me, which I really appreciate. And your recipes are easy, they're healthy, they are specific to each of those patterns. You had a qi deficiency or qi building diet, and you also had a dampness or trying to eliminate dampness, which is so hard kind of diet. And so I love how you are passionate about Chinese medicine nutrition. Tell me about first why you started the Yin Yang diet in the first place.
It goes back to when Sarah and I were in school, and there was a class that we took in our fourth year, and it was called the Food Cures class. And I know that I was really excited about this, and sharing with Sarah, she was very excited about it too. Learning about how to use food in traditional Chinese medicine in order to help people with whatever symptoms they had. The class was probably not what I was expecting it to be. It got laid out as like an herbal class. I remember we would learn about a particular food and then the properties and the temperatures and everything that it did. At the end of the class, we had to all make a dish to say how this would help somebody's pattern. At the time, I made the fruit crisp because I was looking to help with spleen qi deficiency. So I put in like oats, and I cooked apples, and I took some orange peel and I zested it to help move qi. But I didn't learn that from the class. I just took elements and started to bring them together. And I was quite disappointed that we didn't get to learn how to actually make recipes out of them, because at the time I think it was like take a pork hock and maybe throw in some goji berries and maybe some like astragalus and cook that up, and that was your meal. And I was like, I don't think that's going to work for my clients, especially when I start to work. Like, I won't even eat this. I can't imagine anybody else would eat it. So I started to think about it. And actually, at the time, I remember there was another student in the class with me, and I had this dream of maybe opening up a restaurant. And my thought was, is like, what if people came in and you had like a quick TCM diagnosis, and then they brought out a meal that would treat that? That was this like crazy harebrained idea that I had at the time, but that's where it was planted in that class. Sarah, what was your experience like? Because I know that's where it started for you too.
Digestion is what got me into Chinese medicine in the first place, which I think is a very common story for a lot of us practitioners. I remember being really excited about this food cures, being like, we're going to learn how to make recipes, and it's going to be real, and it's going to be great. It's going to be a really practical thing we all have to eat. And then I remember being like, what is this rock sugar? What am I supposed to do with it? And I'm like, But I don't even know where to get that, first of all, and it's not in my regular grocery store, but sure enough, we explored. I remember I made burdock root salad, and to be honest with you, I don't know why. It must have been something that I was passionate about then. I just remember having all the dishes, and it was all so strange. There is nothing about this that was super cohesive, which I was like, we could probably do better.
Then just fast forward,
Okay.
like a number of years later, when I had my first son, I was also experiencing insomnia in those early months. And I remember he was finally sleeping through the night, and I was like staring at the ceiling, totally awake, and I couldn't sleep and I felt anxious. And so I thought, oh, I'll just grab one of my old insomnia formulas, like not even paying attention to what it would treat. And I took it, and it was way too tonifying. And I had even more anxiety and heart palpitations, and I felt awful. And so I was like, I don't even trust my herbs now. I walked over and I grabbed my favorite book of all time from Paul Pitchford, Healing with Whole Foods. And I pulled it up and I was like, okay, I have yin deficiency with some heat right now. So like I pulled it up and I looked, okay, every yin deficient food I could find. What am I going to do with this? And I was like, okay, I'm just going to cook with these foods for the next few days. That's all I did is I made it super watery. I took out all the spices. There was no caffeine. And I ate that way. And I noticed after a few days, I really started to settle and I started to sleep. And I was like, is this the food? I don't really know what's going on here. And then I decided to just do it for a few weeks. And that's all I ate for a few weeks. And I felt so relaxed. I felt like myself. And I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff actually works. Because I did it for so long, I was starting to actually create recipes and get a feel for the foods and how to bring them together just organically. And that's really where I started to make recipes. And during that time, Sarah and I were having play dates because we had our two sons only 2 weeks apart. So we were in the exact same stage together. And I remember going over to Sarah's house for a play date, and she was always dealing with sleep issues. And she was like, I just don't know what to do. Like, Tara, what's the stuff you're doing with the food? Is there anything in Paul Pitcher's book that I could do? And she's like, I'm trying to make these melatonin muffins.
I didn't even know what I was treating with an insomniac baby. I remember sitting on the couch being like, Tara, there's got to be a way, right? And at that point, I was cooking everything in little muffin tins. So everything was a muffin. And I just remember I would watch Tara's son. He would just fall asleep. He could just fall asleep. Who does that? I don't do that. My son doesn't do that. So I'm sitting in the room right now, almost in the exact same position where Tara and I were like, let's do this. Let's explore and expand and really dive into like recipes and what we can do to help our patients and to help ourselves ultimately, because we were new moms with two totally different kids, but we needed the same thing, food as a foundation, right?
To both of you, I could see, first of all, that you've been friends for a long time, which is so important to have that friendship and you have that knowledge of TCM. It's so funny because when you were talking about having a restaurant where people come in, instead of having a menu, it's like you answer a few questions to see what your pattern of diagnosis is, and we'll serve you a meal. I'm like, this is a genius idea. We should totally have a TCM restaurant, and people would not know what they would eat, but they would know that what they eat is really good for them. And then you could give them the recipe and a whole 28-day diet that they could follow to actually help themselves in that pattern. Anyway, that made me smile. I was like, this is such a good idea. And then the fact that I think most of us always end up with good ideas out of necessity for ourselves or to help ourselves. And when we figure it out, then we want to share it with the world. And I'm so glad you brought up Paul Pitchford, Healing with Whole Food. We'll have the link in the show notes below if you don't know about this book. It is fantastic if you are a student or a practitioner because it really breaks it down in an easy, simple way. And I'm all about making it simple. And I know you guys are the same way. You really like to make it simple for your patients. So I thought that's such a good point to bring, that looking at this book, getting some ideas. But you guys took it a step further. You decided to make it simple and accessible for patients with recipes that are simple, easy to make, and at the same time give them something that, because it's so easy in clinical practice to say, oh, stop eating all the cold food, and the cold food are XYZ, right? Don't eat all the raw food and the cold food and all the salads. Start eating warm food, more nuts, more stews, more cinnamon, more spices. Okay, sure, but can you give me a better guidance? And you guys coming up with recipes makes it so much easier. That was something that I was just so excited when you started that years ago, because I remember seeing the liver cheese stagnation plan that you had made with all the recipes, because you guys were so sweet and sent it to me. So that's the first step. And so my question before we talk about a book, because yeah, those two girls have now written a book, which is called the Yin Yang Reset, and we'll talk about this in a minute. In clinical practice, we see patients and we have lifestyle recommendations. And the problem is, diet is the hardest thing to get compliancy from patients. It's really hard to be compliant with diet, even though, just like you guys were explaining, digestion is literally at the center of our health. If you look from kidney 1 to do 20, or from the top of our head to the sole of our feet, digestion is literally at the center. So it means something. Zhong Qi means middle Qi, at the center, which means it affects everything: our mental health, our physical health, everything, our immune system, our neurological system, everything. So it's so important for people to understand that they need to be taking charge of their diet and do the homework and actually take action, and not just expect us to do all the work. How do you really communicate to your patients that this is key to healing?
I think it's really important to know here that Tara and I are both balance method practitioners. So we are very meridian based practitioners as acupuncturists. And then when it comes to the lifestyle recommendations, it takes a moment to read the patient, right? You got to know who your audience is. And I think that's so important. Compliancy is, it's a matter of how much my patient wants to change. If they're all in, it's going to be great. And something that's really important is that if what I'm recommending for them at the beginning, they seriously give it a solid 3-day, try it for 3, circle back in a week, tell me what you feel like, and tell me what works for you. Because Tara and I, this book is all about solutions. And if you come back and you're like, this doesn't work for me, I'll be like, cool, let's figure something else out that does, right? That's the beauty of the book. We can jump around, and not one of us is any one diagnosis ever. So maybe they're chi deficient, which is a really common place that we start, but maybe they also need something from the liver chi stagnation to freshen it up a little bit. So it's really about reading the patient and knowing what they have capacity for, because half the time that's the reason people are coming to see us as acupuncturists, is right, they're lacking a little bit of capacity and they're needing more space. So us throwing on lifestyle, oh, don't do this and this, it's just going to make them struggle a little bit more, right? We have to really know our audience, know our patient.
For the people who are interested, it's easy to get them to do the work. How I'll really bring up the nutrition part to them is putting the power back in their hands. When I say, look, when you come to see me, I'm going to do acupuncture, we're going to talk, we're going to work through things, but you have the capacity to give yourself a treatment every single day by what you put in your mouth. And so this is what I'm going to give you. If you can do the full plan, great. If not, we can start somewhere more simple. I'm going to give this to you, and this is like me treating you every day, but you are actually treating yourself. And I think people get excited when they start to feel empowered and they realize that these things actually matter and will shift their physiology and their body and actually allow them to change and not just need me. Because I'll get to the point where it's, you're doing good, I don't need to see you anymore. Just keep doing what you're doing. When it's cold, you're going to have to drop the raw food and go back to the diet and pick out your favorites and just stay with that. And so I find it just builds a lot of trust with the client, and it also empowers them, because people eat a lot for in terms of calories or nutrients, but they don't actually realize that there's a whole other layer of healing. And we go into that a little bit with Chinese medicine.
The idea is to always try to connect with the patients and figure out, you're right, observation, who can handle what, and then at the same time, how we can communicate this in a way that actually resonate with them. I often say, I'm going to try to help you reach what you're trying to reach with your goal when it comes to health. And that's the top of the mountain. I'm going to show you the path, but you got to walk. I can't carry you, which means you need to do the work, right? And people resonate with this and they understand that it's not just magic, that acupuncture helps you self-regulate. What you put in your mouth is huge because it'll dictate how you feel and how you heal. So thank you for sharing that. What are the common pattern when it comes to nutrition that you see the most in practice?
I think for both of us, it'll be chi deficiency and chi stagnation, right? For me, who isn't stagnated, who isn't stuck in a rut, who doesn't want change, who doesn't need something different, who isn't irritated, right? So for me, I love this. I love treating and working with these patients. I also find it super seasonal. It can be very seasonal. Spleen chi deficiency, I think, is really just one of the most common ones that we see as we're run down and we're overworked and we have a mental list that is way too long. And like you said at the beginning, as an acupuncturist, everything starts with digestion. You will never not come to see me and I won't ask you, how's your digestion, right? In some way, shape, or form. So yeah, those are the biggest ones for me.
In terms of what types of patterns I'm seeing with the nutritional imbalances, it's going to be spleen chi deficiency because those are the people who are looking for food suggestions the most. If I have somebody who comes in who has chi stagnation, which is, I would say, 95% of my clientele, if I brought up food to most of them, they would probably get more mad at me. So I don't bring it in with every client. Depends on the person who comes in and the person who's open to nutrition. When we were writing and we were just so hot with all these recipes and I wanted everybody to do it, it really turned some people off because that's not where they were at. And so that was a really good learning lesson for me as a practitioner. People who are coming in are saying, I'm bloated, I'm constipated, I'm alternating bowel movements, they're fatigued, they're catching colds, they have runny noses, like all of these things. I'm going to really be like, okay, here, let's go into like food and I'm going to give you foods from a TCM perspective. And I said, it's going to be different from functional medicine or Western health. So in terms of food, that's the one I see the most.
I get a lot of patients that are like Chinese medicine curious, right? What is something that they can do that's quick and easy that's not in the treatment room, right? I think for both Tara and I, and it's a major part of the plans is tea. Start with tea. If you don't have a herbalist, just start with tea, right? So it's something that can be really simple. So even if we're up against the overwhelmed, stressed out mom, it's really easy to say, are you open to like just adding in one more thing to drink? It's really easy. And that could be the start of the change for them, which is really important.
Did you know I created 3 books to support your TCM journey? Often I'm asked, Clara, what's the difference between all 3? Well, they all have fun, colorful visual to make them much more easy to grasp and understand each concept. They're definitely not your TCM typical boring dry books. They are available in hard copy and they ship all over the world. But if you'd rather the digital version, they all come with video links to complement them and can be downloaded on any device. My first book, Acupoint Made Easy, this is the orange one, covers all acupuncture points function, location, depth and angle of insertion, including special points categories, extra point cupping moxa, and all my clinical pearls. My second book, Chinese Medicine Made Easy, which is my green book, covers all TCM foundation, diagnosis, yes, including tongue and pulse, with lots of colorful visual to help you grasp specifically observation, right? Case studies, and my digital fillable intake form for you to use with your patients. My third book, Chinese Medicine Treatments Made Easy, that's my purple book, covers all TCM treatments for 160 syndromes, including acupuncture points, herbal formulas, diet, ear acupuncture, and many other TCM tools. So you can have that book at your fingertips every day in clinic. It is a must for all practitioners. I provide sample for each of my books that you can download to see if this is really truly what you were looking for, because I want you to be happy with what you're investing in when you invest in any of my products. You can check out the links to all my books in the show notes below, or go to my website, acuproacademy.com, and on the menu tab, click the shop tab and get your copy today. I found in practice that it's harder to tell people to stop eating something, and it's easier to just say start adding this or start adding that, right? It's easier than saying stop, right? Nobody likes that red sign that says stop right away. That's negative, and I won't be able to eat what I love, and all this that comes in patients' heads. So I appreciate you guys sharing this. Give me, and this is for selfishly for everyone that's listening, a quick breakfast recipe for the chi deficiency patients. Something easy they can make.
The easiest
Yeah.
one will be a smoothie. So we don't have raw cold smoothies. We have hot smoothies. Hot smoothies are a weird thing. There's no doubt about that. Again, know your audience. But Tara and I make hot smoothies mostly through fall, winter, and into spring. Summer it changes, turns to room temperature. But we always try with the spleen chi deficiency, you're going to have that apple is going to be applesauce. It's not going to be like a raw apple because you're going to feel real bloated after that. The first breakfast one is like an apple strawberry smoothie. So there's applesauce, strawberries, almond milk. We always add protein powder just to make sure that you're hitting that protein quotient for your day, because that's another big thing that I think that a lot of people are missing. There's ground flax, there's cinnamon. That's like a good classic recipe for spleen chi deficiency. And I think people really struggle to eat first thing in the morning, which is a whole other don't get us started on compliancy type of thing, right? But yeah, a smoothie would be the easiest and the fastest way to go.
If you have some of your ingredients that are cooked, sometimes I'll even put in oats into the smoothie and I'll blend those up as well. Like I said, a banana, because a banana can be cold. But I find most people can handle it digestion wise. But if we do in a little bit of cooked oats, it's like a really good resistant starch. So it really balances your blood sugar for a long time. But it's also warming too. And then things like cinnamon, you can use warming spices. You could put in ginger. The big thing for us is with the hot smoothies is to boil the water. So I describe it to people as a hot chocolate or like a hot white chocolate. And you can do, depending on what type of protein powder you buy. So if you're not doing chocolate, then you could just do like a vanilla protein powder. And then again, you could just put in some oats and you could put some cinnamon and your almond milk. If you want, you could put in some fruit. You don't have to. And it tastes like a really thick sort of hot chocolate. And when I use that word, it reframes it for people. And then they go into have and they're like, oh, I love this. It tastes like a vanilla latte or something in the morning. And it's really good. I'm totally addicted to them. That's all I've eaten for years and years for my breakfast.
When you put it in a mug, it's like, oh, great. You're just having a hot cup of smoothie. That's really what it comes down to. And you can change the texture and the consistency of it depending on what you like, right? And in the book, there is always a point of reference where you can be like, oh, what could I put in my smoothie that would be delicious?
In winter, I have my chocolate drink, so I could call it a smoothie, but I call it my chocolate drink, which is usually hazelnut milk with cacao, with dried peanut butter. You can buy that too if you guys have never heard of this. I'll add up cinnamon, sometimes not, and then it's all warmed up. The hazelnut milk is obviously heated, and then I mix it all up, and it's a soothing drink, and the cacao has prebiotic, and there is really good fat in the hazelnut milk, so it's really soothing to me. I totally understand the warm drink in a way is more like a comforting latte, like you said, or chai or something that's very comforting for people. Do you do overnight oats where you could put the oats with any kind of milk you like? And usually I put cacao. I love chocolate. So cacao in my overnight oats. And then the next day I warm it up because I don't want it to be cold from the fridge, or I leave it at room temperature if it's summer.
Or even just pour like hot milk on it in the morning. If you do the overnight oats, that's a good idea. I never thought about warming it up or even warming it with something warm. But the nice thing is about people who tend to have chi deficiency, their appetite isn't so great. And they usually are the people who don't want to eat breakfast. That's why the smoothie is nice and the hot smoothie is nice, because the warmth, and it's blended up. So it's like pureed. And so it's super easy to digest. I find it stimulates appetite. So while people are drinking it, they feel that they can keep drinking it. And over time, they start to crave having something in the morning too, which I find is really reparative.
The chi deficient person, I always say the best food is baby food. So smoothies is exactly that. It's like easy to digest. You don't have to chew. You don't have to put the effort. It's really baby food. So that makes total sense. But you guys recently published a book, The Yin Yang Reset. This is geared obviously to patients and people that are trying to help themselves with a change of diet. So tell me that story, how you decided to write a book, because I know it's not easy to write a book. Not only that, but your book is on Amazon.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! So that's really, really cool. And we'll have the link in the show notes below, because I think for practitioners or even for ourselves, it would be so beneficial to have as well for ideas, for recommendations. So tell me more about why you decided to do this.
What we really began focusing on was enough recipes for our patients, for practitioners to refer to patients. We spent a lot of time on the godfather of TCM food is Paul Pitchford, right? We talked about that earlier. And we really used his book and made it in a language that if you're sitting down with a cup of tea and you read the book, it's like you're having a cup of tea with one of us. You really hear our voices in it. And that was really important, like building the idea of coaching someone through how to take on this type of eating, right? Or this different sort of way of thinking. The PDFs that we started with, they sold themselves. It was amazing. It's been a journey. It's transformed multiple times over,
Mhm.
which I love. And now it's in a
Yeah.
compact little book.
We put it at a price point that is so accessible for everybody. It's everything. It's our whole program just wrapped up into one small book. People are really liking being able to have it. And as their syndrome changes or as other things come up or in their house, they can pick it up and then now go into the next one.
You guys gifted me a copy, and it is easy to read, and it's very simple, and it's not complicated, but it makes it very easy to understand, and then you can apply. That's the thing. It's all about applying the information so you can change your life or you can get better. Thank you for writing the book. I think that when acupuncturists are going and putting more information out there, it helps the whole TCM community, because it really opens the education piece of how Chinese medicine can help people. How does it work? What does it come from? What do we do? How do we do it? So I really love when people like you guys put out a book to explain, to make it simple, and to give actionable tips like recipes. Here it is, do it, and then see what it tastes like, what you feel like, and then they can adapt. Like you said, there's a change, anybody can adapt, right? So tell me a success story from a patient from having followed your recipes and your diet that obviously you share in the book, that you were so proud and so happy that this person really resonated and applied the concept, applied the recipe, and saw some change.
Yeah, I had a client. She came in and it wasn't even her main thing. When we started to talk about her digestion, she just was just so textbook, bloated and gassy, and her bowels were soft all the time. And I'm like, what are you eating? She goes, oh, I just eat salads all the time. I ate salads for lunch. I ate salads for dinner. And I'm like, what's your breakfast like? And she had like ice cold smoothies for breakfast. I started to educate her about how like we have this like digestive fire, and think about this fire inside, and you're like literally snuffing out the flame when you're putting in all this cold food. Think about it now, your stomach is having to work harder to break it down and digest after it warms it up. Of course it's going to slow everything down. It's going to be in there, it's going to start to have gas, you're going to start bloating. And she's like, yeah, when I go to the bathroom I have like undigested particles of food. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you are so textbook. You have to do this. So then we just started with some teas, which are like ginger warming teas, and hot smoothies, which I had to tell her they're like thick hot chocolate, and got her to cook all of her meals. So instead of having raw veggies, I said stir fry them or roast them, make extra, and then have that for your lunch the next day. So it's already pre-cooked and you can just warm it up. And she came in, and then like literally a week or two later, she was like, I can't believe it. Like I'm having solid bowel movements. And she's like, but I thought salads were so good for you. I'm like, they are good for you, but you just didn't have the digestive capacity in order to break it down. And so you're making your digestion stronger because we know by cooking the food, it's like what you said, Clara, it's like Sarah and I call it the baby food diet because you're eating complex carbs, things that are really warm, easy to digest, plus you're cooking them. So that's partial digestion right there. It's almost starting from scratch, like rebuilding the middle again. We worked together until she was doing better. And then a year later, she came back and she's like, okay, I'm okay eating salads in the summer, but I realize if I try to eat them in the winter, same thing happens. I'm like, exactly. That's great. So enjoy your salads in the summer. I eat salads in the summer and then go back to cooking your veg, doing like quick stir fries or again, making soups or stews or casseroles or roasting. Then you're not going to have that problem anymore. So she really learned and it was interesting to see like the switch of how it's not just nutrient based, that it's also how you prepare the food and the actual foods that you're eating.
Thank you for sharing that because I think that's exactly it. When patients see the results, then they're hooked, right? And when you were telling the story, that was me. I know. When I was in TCM college, I was always bloated. And I worked for 15 years in the fitness industry. And while I was doing this degree, I was also working still on the side to pay my bills. And I remember having massive big salads every lunch at school that I would bring with lots of raw vegetables and different kind of greens. And I put the kitchen sink in there. It was that big, massive salad. And I loved it. In my mind, just like her, it's healthy. It's a lot of nutrients. It's vitamins and minerals. And one of my teachers, he was quite funny, came to me one day when I was eating my big salad and he pointed to the salad and he yelled at me and he said, "You, no more salad." And then he did this so many times. He would come and tell me again and yell at me to stop eating salad, but never explained it. And I thought, what's his problem? What is his problem with my salad? It's beautiful, my colorful salad. Dr. Lu Fong taught us food
Oh,
cures.
wow.
And so the next year, I'm walking in this class and he's starting explaining about the raw salad and how it depletes your Mingmen fire, it depletes your qi, your spleen qi. That's why you yelled at me for so many times. But what was funny about this is once you learned this, then I backed up from the salad and the bloating went away. And it was just like a light bulb, my whole life full of bloating, even though I thought I was eating so well. And just like you, Tara, I do eat salad in the summer, but I make sure I have a piece of cooked salmon with it and something that's going to help me with the digestion of the salad. And I definitely don't have them in winter. So it's also adapting to the season. We have access to watermelon in Canada in winter. I don't understand why, because it's a summer fruit. We shouldn't have it in the store. We don't need it in the store. We don't need it in our fridge. It's going with the season, which is so key to basically harmonizing our body, just like the environment and harmonizing with the environment. So thank you for sharing that. When you guys wrote the book, what was the vision for the book? Because you made it affordable. What's your vision with this?
This is really great because this will circle back to also the title of the book and yin yang. And Tara and I represent yin yang throughout this book in the funniest ways. The inspiration for me for this book is for every single one of my patients to have it in their hands and to have me and us in their kitchen helping them, guide them through. Here's the best part about this book. It's only actually 50 pages long. All you get to read and learn and understand and easily, quickly assimilate what this book can offer you in 50 pages. And then the rest is gravy. My patients are the genuine inspiration behind it, on top of my family.
My vision has always been for the practitioner because it started right back in food cures. It was like I was so excited to be able to have access to food from a TCM lens, to be able to help people. And it took years and lots of trial and error to figure out how to actually put together recipes. I feel that whenever I've talked to practitioners over the years, they're really excited at the idea of something that is already put together for their clients, that's really easy, really affordable. And they don't have to do all the hard work. They can read the book and kind of start to see, oh, how do these recipes look? How can I get the feeling or the gist of it? But then I can just tell them a bit, and then they can go and take care of it on their own. And then I can answer questions when they come in. So for me, it's about making the practitioner's life easy, not having to give the person that we're treating like a million different lists. And like the lists are even like almost contradictory sometimes. It's so confusing. How do I know how to make something out of a black silky chicken and like goji berries? Like I don't. It's not even relatable, a lot of these things, for the people that we're working with. I really wanted to have it so easy, so simple, so that every single practitioner, like my dream was like to have like students in school maybe take food cures, but then also hear like through the grapevine, oh, have you heard about the Yin Yang Reset? Yeah, we should get it. That will really help us to integrate everything we're learning together.
This is great because you are the yin and yang, right? Sarah's, I really want this book to help patients, and this is where I got inspired. And then Tara, you're like, okay, for practitioners to use it as well to help their patients. That's why I love how practitioners will do something like a book like you guys publish, and it has a ripple effect all over, because then you're helping practitioners, students, and patients, and everybody can benefit and help themselves, which is all about health and finding harmony. So I really appreciate you both coming in today. I just wanted to ask for one final thoughts from both of you.
This has been a real journey, becoming a published author and being out there a little bit more, and having people actually turn to us for guidance is really quite amazing. I have to say a huge thank you to the practitioners that have taken on the book. One thing that really brought me to my knees once we published the book was the reviews that people left on Amazon. Honestly, it left me speechless. I'm really grateful for the community that we've built, for the community that will continue to grow. I'm really grateful for this opportunity, Clara.
Thank you.
I echo everything that Sarah says. Sarah and I are literally the yin and yang of this book. And it's not just in who we envision it, it's how we speak in the book. You can see even in the recipes, some of Sarah's thoughts versus mine. Sarah is a recipe rebel. She hates recipes. So she really focused on things that were really easy to pull together. We have snacks options in the book and the teas. And for me, I am a recipe follower. I must have a recipe or I don't know what I'm doing. And Sarah doesn't measure, but I have to measure everything. So when she was making recipes, oh, it was challenging to try to put it down on paper. But it really covers everybody. If you're not a recipe follower, there's lots of simple snacks and ways to eat, and start with teas. And then if you are a recipe follower like me, you really want everything laid out, then that's all covered for you as well. And so it's really nice because it covers all bases. And I love how it just plays into TCM being yin yang and being able to look at the yin and yang of all the foods together.
It's interesting you say that because my husband is like you. He has to follow a recipe to the T. Like he is just so, oh, this is like a quarter. I can't put more. I'm like, it's okay if it's a little bit more. I'm the opposite. I'm like Sarah. I'm like, let's put this together. Let's see what happened, right? So I'm the opposite. So it's great because you're right. You're appealing to two different people because it comes from two different people. And that makes it such a good harmony, like you said, like a yin yang.
Oh my God.
I love it. I really appreciate you both being here today and to connect, because we haven't talked in a long time, where we've known each other for a long time. So it's so good to see you both. And I really appreciate you being on the AcuPro show, and wish you the best, because I have read the book, and thank you for gifting me the book, because it is simple. It's beautiful. You guys did such a good job. You should be so proud of it. And we'll have the link in the show notes for everyone to check it out.
Thank you.
Both.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I truly hope you benefited from this episode, and I would love for you to share it with a friend that may benefit from it as well. Follow the show, leave a review, and if you want more, go to my website, acuproacademy.com. I have tons of resources there with treatment protocols, case studies, free courses, and so much more. And connect with me on all social media at Acupro Academy. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, Pinterest, and LinkedIn and TikTok. And no matter what, keep rocking it using TCM. Please listen to the disclaimer because the AcuPro Show podcast and material shared through AcuPro Academy, which is a subdivision of Natural Health Sense Incorporated, are designed solely for educational and entertainment purposes. The utilization of information from this podcast or any associated material is at the user's discretion and risk. This content is not meant to replace the guidance of an acupuncturist, Chinese medicine doctor, medical doctor, physician, or any qualified professional, nor is it a substitute for proper diagnosis or treatment. Users are strongly advised not to ignore or postpone seeking medical advice for any existing medical condition with their healthcare professional regarding any health concerns.